cylinders to pipe natural gas fail to switch, your LPG supply could be cut off unless you prove PNG isn't feasible. In on point 2, even as the US talks peace with Iran, it is rapidly building up troops in the region. The big question, is this a real push for a deal or preparation for a ground invasion? In on point 3, big shame for Pakistan as Iran refuses to allow Karachi-bound ship to pass Strait of Hormuz. And now let's take a quick look at the headlines. All-party meeting on the West Asia crisis concludes. Central government assures opposition parties that there is no shortage of any kind of petroleum products and there is no need for panic. ADMK releases first candidate list for Tamil Nadu, 23 candidates named, EPS to contest polls from Edappa DC. Singapore coroner rules Zubeen Garg's death as accidental drowning. Coroner upholds Coast Guard's finding, also says no one forced, cursed or pushed the singer into the water. And now, the first on point. In a move aimed at accelerating gas network expansion and easing pressure on fuel supplies in the middle of Iran war, the centre has directed that cooking gas supplied through LPG cylinders will be discontinued for households that fail to switch to piped natural gas where such connectivity is available. Under the new order, consumers will be given a 3-month window to migrate to PNG or apply for a connection. Beyond this period, LPG supply will be halted unless households present a no objection certificate from the authorized entity stating that PNG connectivity is technically unfeasible. The order has been issued under the Essential Commodities Act to speed up the expansion of pipelines infrastructure across the country. It simplifies approval procedures, fixes charges and requires authorities to grant permission within set timelines, failing which approval will be treated as granted. City gas distribution companies have been tasked with proactively engaging LPG users and facilitating the transition. LPG distributors, meanwhile, will be required to notify consumers clearly indicating that cylinder supplies will cease after the notice period expires. The policy comes amid tightening LPG availability as ongoing geopolitical tensions in West Asia disrupt supplies from key exporting regions. The government is increasingly encouraging households towards PNG, which is supplied through pipelines directly to kitchens, removing the need for cylinder bookings and refills. India currently has over 33 crore LPG connections compared to just about 1.6 crore PNG connections, which means LPG demand remains massive and vulnerable to global shocks.
The important point is that our dependency, import dependency for LPG is much higher than the import dependency for PNG or LNG. We produce 50% domestically as far as the PNG is concerned. So, ये देश हित में है कि हम LPG से PNG पर शिफ्ट हों। जहां जहां पर नेटवर्क आ गया है, मैंने इससे पहले भी प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस में आपको बताया है कि लगभग 60 लाख ऐसे कंज्यूमर्स हैं जो जहां पर नेटवर्क है और वो बहुत जल्दी कनेक्शन उनको मिल सकता है, लेकिन उन्होंने दे हैव डिसाइडेड नॉट टू टेक इट टिल नाउ। द एंटिटी है वो जितने भी लोगों को जहां पर नेटवर्क अवेलेबल है उनको रिटर्न में इंफॉर्मेशन देगी। रजिस्टर्ड पोस्ट एक लेटर के द्वारा उनको इंफॉर्मेशन दी जाएगी और इंफॉर्मेशन देने के 3 महीने के अंदर कंज्यूमर को एलपीजी से पीएनजी पर शिफ्ट होना होगा।
Before I go to my colleague Shweta Kothari, let me tell you what has happened in the meeting that was held on the entire crisis. The government has very categorically said there is no need to panic. विपक्ष की पार्टियां कभी भी जानकारी के लिए आ सकती हैं, which means the senior ministers in the government have said that, well, you can come to us, we'll give the information. Let me straight away go to my Deputy Editor Business, Shweta Kothari, who joins me from the studio. Shweta, before I come to this topic, why this notice has been issued, can you tell our viewers what has happened in this meeting on the issue of LPG gas shortage, which the government briefed the parliamentarians?
Absolutely. Karthikeya, this is exactly what we have learned so far as that crucial meeting is concerned. And government has informed that at least 4 ships carrying LPG have been allowed to pass through Strait of Hormuz. We have details of those 4 ships, including Shivalik, Nanda Devi, the first 2 vessels which arrived in India on 14th of March, and Jagvasant and Pine Gas were other 2 vessels which are very large gas carriers that also arrived on 23rd and 24th of March. That's what the government is saying right now. There is no need to panic. Panic की जरूरत नहीं है. विपक्ष की पार्टियों से भी कहा गया है कि इस तरीके की जानकारी वो ले सकते हैं. They can take all the information that is needed at the moment as far as the situation on Strait of Hormuz is concerned. So the government there reiterating in the all-party meeting that we are well placed when it comes to our LPG, and therefore there is no need to panic. Also, 4 large vessels have been allowed through Strait of Hormuz, while multiple countries are still struggling to get their vessels through. So the government is saying that our diplomacy is working on ground and there is no sense of panic. There should not be any panic. Now remember, this comes after weeks of uncertainty over whether there is enough and more LPG in the country or not. And interministerial government meetings day after day coming out to clarify on what are the levels when it comes to crude oil and LPG that India continues to have by the way of buffers are telling us that we are well placed. However, coming to the issue at hand, the government is also preparing ahead. Let me borrow a dialogue from Mission Impossible.
What I really want to know before we get into this nitty-gritty, why this strong measure being taken by the government that they need to shift to the piped gas? Wasn't this the rule earlier? What was the need to enforce it today? Was it a lack of compliance on part of the people?
So, continuing from where I left off, interesting dialogue from Mission Impossible. Desperate times, desperate measures. We are in desperate times, Karthikeya. If you look at what's happening globally, and Strait of Hormuz, through which 60% of our LPG needs passes, is currently a choke point. So while diplomacy is playing up in the Middle East and India has successfully been able to get those 4 ships to India, we don't know what the future holds as the war enters its 4th week, is actually finishing its 5th week now this Saturday. So keeping that in mind, and given that India produces most of its own PNG, the piped natural gas, 50% of it's produced in India, while we depend for 60% of our LPG on the Middle East, the government has now mandated that all those households that can get a PNG connection and don't have a PNG connection must do it now. In fact, we heard the Secretary for Petroleum and Natural Gas earlier this afternoon saying that there are at least 16 crore such households that can move to PNG, haven't moved to PNG. But let me also quickly give you an update. Since the war began, in the first 25 days itself, about 2.5 lakh people moved to PNG. About 2.5 lakh applications are pending further. But till date, the situation remains a little abysmal. 33 crore cylinders versus only 1.6 crore PNG gas pipelines and connections. So, the balance is heavily tilted in favor of PNG. So, the government has now found this appropriate time to nudge people to go for PNG. It's cleaner, it's safer, it's easily available, it's made in India.
Shweta,
so, in a way, reducing dependency.
Shweta, there are 33 crore people who are dependent on LPG. But there are roughly 1.5 to 2 crore people who are part of the piped gas supply system. How quickly this switch can be made? I mean to say, from 33 crores, 2 crores to 33 crores, that's huge.
I know. It's a huge difference and a gap that one will have to scale up very quickly. But let's also understand this is only for urban areas. The government knows where there is no pipeline, people cannot switch, Karthikeya. So, there's no sense of panic there for those people who cities, tier 1, tier 2 cities where PNG is available should switch. If they don't switch, they will lose access to LPG. But for rural India, where there is no pipeline, there cannot be any infrastructure, there is no such mandate. So it's only a mandate for wherever there is piped natural gas available.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Shweta, for joining me. It's time for a short break, but don't go away, because after this, when I'm going to come back, we are going to talk about, is America preparing for peace or is America preparing for war?
खेलता है, झूलता उछलता है, दौड़ता कभी कभी दौड़ कराता है, आगे आगे बढ़ता है इंडिया, अमूल दूध पीता है इंडिया।
Tata Motors Commercial Vehicles. Truck cabin safety is a decision made at the design stage. We study Indian accident data, simulate thousands of crashes digitally.